CSA CloudBytes is really launched as an educational webinar as part of the Cloud Security Alliance mission to build a trusted cloud ecosystem and educate the industry on all matters related to the cloud. We're looking for folks who can bring the most important topics to the forefront in the form of education and discussion. And today's speaker certainly does that. So without further ado, it's my pleasure to introduce a gentleman who comes to us with over 28 years of experience in the industry. He's been featured in multiple security publications. He's the Open Certification Framework co-chair. He's the Cloud Trust Protocol co-chair, ISO product manager for BSI Group America. John DiMaria. John, the floor is yours.
Thanks, John. Hi, everyone. As John said, I am John DiMaria, BSI America, and thanks for joining today. Just wanted to, the STAR certification was launched back in September of last year. It was there to answer to gaps in the systems of cloud compliance, cloud service providers that CSA found in terms of security gaps. So BSI being one of the larger standards bodies in the world, CSA came to BSI and helped to help them assist in putting together this extension to the ISO 27001 framework. As history has taught us over many years, evolution is constant, and so as new pioneers take on challenges to improve things, paradigms change, and we need to change with them if we want to continue and flourish and bear fruit. The rule of paradigm is a set of rules of boundaries and problem-solving systems for being successful within those rules. So, unfortunately, when a paradigm changes, everybody starts back to ground zero. And typically, nothing you've done in the past matters anymore. You can't count on past successes because industry's paradigm in terms of, what they feel success is, or in this case, what they feel security is, has really changed. So you really have to change with it. A perfect example of this, as paradigms change, has gone on for years. I'm sure you all remember the quartz watches that came out years ago. A lot of people don't understand, but the Swiss actually created the quartz watch originally. The Swiss had 90% of the market in watches. Japanese came along at a trade show and saw the quartz watch. The Swiss thought it was sort of a novelty. The Japanese took it as being a new concept or a new way of thinking in terms of the way watches should look and the quality of watches. They took that design because it wasn't patented and created the quartz watch. The Swiss went from 90% of the market to 33% of the market. Industry's perception in that case was changed. So regardless of what type of quality the Swiss had in their watches, or what their marketing was, or what their the perception of how things should be had changed, and therefore nothing they've done in the past really made a whole lot of difference. So the paradigm has really changed in terms of cloud computing today because organizations are looking for a higher level of transparency. No longer have the things you've done in the past really matters a whole lot because now with cloud computing, there's a lot of barriers and boundaries that have been broken down. So organizations are really looking for that more transparency, how organizations are managed, what's the processes for continual improvement, and how do I know that you're going to be the same 5 years from now, or how would I even know you're going to be around 5 years from now? So the Open Certification Framework has been developed over the years, And I'm sure a lot of you here are already familiar with the self-assessment portion of that, where organizations go in, fill out questionnaires, post them on the STAR Registry website, and you can go out there and look and see, how organizations have answered those questions in terms of their security posture. Some of the problem with that is obviously it is a self-assessment. You also will notice that organizations answer those questionnaires in a various ways. Some of them put very comprehensive answers together. Some just answer yes and no. So it definitely serves a purpose and starts to get us into that level of transparency of organizations declaring where they're at. But now we've moved into the second phase of that, which is the STAR certification. And this is really the assessment portion and increased transparency from that, which is what we're going to talk about today. And then at the end, I'll talk about the third part of this, which is really in its infancy stage, which is continuous monitoring, which is going to bring us more into a real-time monitoring of cloud service providers. So virtually every industry-specific standard framework either uses ISO 27001 as its foundation, or it references it, or it even uses it as a benchmark. So standards like high trust, shared assessments, even the NIST 853, and most recently the newest NIST cybersecurity framework also references ISO 27001. And what's interesting, even the other standards that are referenced, those standards reference ISO 27001. So for many, many years, ISO 27001, since its conception in 1995, has been used as the international standard for information security. It's widely recognized and respected. And in some governments, like Japan and the GCloud, ISO 27001 is mandated in a lot of cases. When we're going to talk about the GCloud a little bit later on too, because it's very important for organizations that are looking to push out their cloud services internationally. It doesn't focus, 27001 doesn't really focus on detail in any specific sector. So it is scalable and it's flexible to allow growth and applicability. The Cloud Control Matrix, which is a set of controls specific to cloud service providers, provides the additional detail required to make sure that ISO 27001 is focused on the critical controls for cloud security. So naturally, 27001 has always been written with the expectation that you can add additional controls. As a matter of fact, it even states within the standard that the Annex A controls are not exhaustive and that organizations can design controls and identify them from any source. So it's very flexible and scalable. And in the past, certifications are really, in a lot of cases, a pass-fail approach, right? So while it may mean something to the organization, it's not very transparent to cloud service purchasers. Therefore, the Cloud Control Matrix is assessed against 5 capability levels. The 27001 makes sure that there's an overarching management system in place. The Cloud Control Matrix drills down more specifically into cloud-specific controls. Now, use of maturity model is in place, and use of maturity models are really increasing within the industry. For example, the new NIST cybersecurity framework has what they call tiers, which is a maturity level in terms of measuring yourself and where you're at in terms of cybersecurity. And even those you may be familiar with, the Department of Homeland Security's private sector preparedness program is also moving in that direction in terms of maturity modeling. And other standards and frameworks are also moving in that direction, specifically because of wanting to more transparency within the industry. A couple things you need to make sure that you hang on to in terms of ideas as we move through this is the scope must be fit for purpose and SLA driven. Now, this is very important because as we move through this webcast, you're going to understand how internationally this is becoming much more, the scope and SLAs are becoming much more important to governments and industry in terms of what they expect out of cloud service providers. Fit for purpose it means that you have the critical products and services that you're addressing within your certification. Those of you who have gone through 27001 certification or other certifications know that scope is not always scope doesn't always have to be necessarily addressed. In some cases, you can certify any scope that you want. But now with STAR certification, your scope has to be specific to those critical products and services that drive your cloud service. Maturity model was piloted to make sure that we ensure reliability and that results can be achieved. Our aim was to take the most appropriate approaches out there to create a model that works with the cloud control matrix. So your classical maturity models, while you may see some similarities, the maturity model used within the STAR certification is much more specific to security and the cloud control matrix. This is an example of the Cloud Control Matrix version 1.4, which is currently being used for STAR certification. Version 3.1 is here to be released shortly. There was obviously there's more controls added to 3.1. Plus, we had to address more specifically to the new standards, the ISO 27001 2013, the new PCI standard, and so on. So 3.1 is currently STAR certification is being assessed under version 1.4, and organizations will be able to transition to 3.1 over the next 18 to 24 months. For those of you not totally familiar with the Cloud Control Matrix, it does have 11 domains covering a lot of all the areas of security. You may find some of these similar to what you might find in the ISO 27001. There's 98 controls, again, covering all the main aspects of security, compliance, risk management, legal, data governance, human resources, release management, resiliency, and operational management. So you're assessed against every one of these controls. And what was really important when developing the STAR certification and adding these additional controls is we had to listen to the current service providers out there and the clients that use those service providers. And the message we got is no new standards. Okay, basically said if you're creating a new standard, don't even bother us. If you're doing something that we can extend our current management systems with, we'll consider it. We think it's a good idea, but what we don't need is another standard and another audit. So essentially, we listened to that. And so the Cloud Control Matrix is built as a set of controls that can be added directly into your current statement of applicability. So when you're 27001 certified, you have to declare a statement of applicability, documenting what controls apply to your organization, why they apply. You also have to look at why they don't apply. But the Cloud Control Matrix just becomes an extension, what we call an extension to scope, an extension to those, to that statement of applicability. So it will be no different than if you have to address HIPAA controls or if you have to address PCI controls. You would add those to your ISO 27001 framework, or management system, and just show why, how you meet those requirements. So again, just becomes an extension to the ISO 27001 process. It is not a new standard that's being rolled out. Let's talk a little bit about the capability maturity model. We know that organizations, sometimes go through a considerable amount of external audits. And I hear that all the time. We have a revolving door of audits. Problem is, number of inspections has no bearing or no measurement of how well an organization is managing and improving their processes. Okay, frequency and number of audits does not equal better security. Organizations operating in a reactive state many times can still pass audits. Okay, so essentially, you don't know where you're going, any road's going to get you there. Capability model or capability assessment is really based on the Plan, Do, Check, Act process, but there's an extra cycle in there. It's called the Plan, Do, Modify, Check, Act process. Okay, this is built on a process that was many years ago called the Kaizen Process, and it refers to philosophy or practices that are focused on continuous improvement. You standardize an operation and activities, you measure the operation, you gauge that measurement against your requirements, you innovate to meet those requirements and increase efficiency, and then you standardize on that process and improve your operations, and that cycle continues on just as the Plan, Do, Check, Act process. It really emphasizes the need for improvement by implementing improvement activities that can range from a small step of continual improvements at a workplace to significant improvements for the entire organization. The organization should define objectives for the improvement of its products and processes, organizational structures, and its management system through the analysis of data. The improvement processes should follow a structured approach, keeping in mind that the Plan, Do, Check, Act or Plan, Do, Modify, Check, Act process. This methodology should be applied consistently across all processes, and the organization should ensure that continual improvement becomes an established part of that organizational culture. And that's really what we're looking at today with the new paradigm. It's a cultural change within the organization. It's not just a checklist or a number of controls. I've embellished here upon the classical Plan, Do, Check, Act process to show how the core structure fits within the Plan, Do, Check, Act. What a lot of people don't understand about the Plan, Do, Check, Act process, which is part of most standards and frameworks that are out there, is this constant learning that needs to be done. From the time you establish your system to implementing and operating your system, you need to continue to learn, monitor and review those systems, and then maintain those systems moving forward, always keeping in mind those interested parties, those people that have a stake in your business, or those people who are using your products and services. So this is why this is so critical to the STAR certification process. We look at different capability factors. So here on the left, you probably will notice these are more along the classical lines of the capability levels that you might see in some maturity models, but really measured from capability factors of communication, stakeholder engagement, the policies, plans, and procedures, and how those are implemented from a systematic approach. Do people have the proper skills and expertise in place? Really, what's really become more and more important is the ownership and leadership of management. And that's how well does management, how much does management get involved? How much are they hands-on? With the new standards today, it's become more and more requirements that you have to show evidence of management involvement. can no longer just document that management's involved. You have to show evidence of how management is hands-on within the organization. And of course, the all-important monitoring and measuring of those systems, to not understand that you're measuring, but do you know why you're measuring, and do you know what you're getting out of that measurement systems? Are you measuring just for the sake of measuring? Or do these measurement systems really have a purpose? Okay. Everything you do obviously is a cost within your organization. So this is really meant to find out exactly, what those measurement systems are. Do they serve a purpose, and are they positively affecting the organization? This is just a grid of what you might find during a STAR certification audit that an auditor is going to be using to look at the maturity of your organization as a cloud service provider. Again, is different factors. It's obviously not enough time to explain the details behind this, but there's different factors here that are used to determine at what level, whether you're reactive, proactive, improving, or innovating, what level within those areas are you operating at, and also based on what applies to that particular section of the cloud control matrix. So does skills or expertise apply in that particular domain? Does monitoring and measurement apply in that particular domain? Whatever applies to the domains within the organization, that will then be assessed against this maturity model. Objective evidence is gathered to support the particular grade that's given in that area, and it's used as a very good continual improvement process, because in the end result, you're given a dashboard and final results in terms of how you performed, or how you're managing your systems in all the different areas that apply. And then you get a gold, silver, or bronze rating based on where you lie within that grid. This is an internal report only. Okay, this is not reported to the public by CSA, but it is reported internally. Obviously, it's a great management tool and allows you to understand where you're at today and where you need to be moving forward. You have to be ISO 27001 certified to achieve STAR certification. So that's the base certification, and then STAR is on top of that, as I mentioned, an extension to scope and assessed against that. So you can't be assessed against STAR unless you're already certified to ISO 27001. You can go through the certifications simultaneously, so you can do an ISO 27001 plus STAR certification all at one time, or you can get ISO 27001 certified first and then STAR certification later. It's important to understand that the two can be done separately. There's about nine certifications that have been issued since September of last year. The applications are in double digits, the mid to high double digits right now, that are being processed, and these need to be carried out by a IAF, International Accreditation Forum, accredited certified body. Okay, so very important to understand that these audits cannot be carried out by any organization. They must be an accredited organization by UCAS or ANAB, and they must follow ISO 27006 and 17021 requirements. So and this is really important to CSA because they want to make sure that it's internationally accepted and that it follows, accredited international certifications, so that it is accepted all over the world. So it's important that the same people who carry out your ISO 27001 certification are the same people that would carry out the extension to the assessment to STAR certification. Let's talk a little bit about GCloud, because I think it's important to understand how critical STAR certification is going to be globally. The GCloud is the UK government's initiative to encourage the adoption of cloud services across the whole of the public sector. So their aim is to simplify how public sector buys and delivers services by creating a marketplace of a pay-as-you-go commodity services that can be easily scaled up or down based on the changes and needs of business and its users. It's not about IT, but it changes the perception and encourages organizations to use service providers that are listed in the cloud store. So the requirements to be listed in the GCloud really support what's going on with the STAR certification. Services have to be formally assessed against the Communications Electronic Security Group's assurance requirements. And then this means that the HMG, which stands for Her Majesty's Government, have checked the service and feel that it's safe enough to look after their information. Now, like most things, there is a shorthand in general use here. So these levels, the IL2, IL3, IL4 levels, are really what's called, or really BIL, are called business impact levels. So you are accredited against one of these impact levels depending on the type of information that you hold as an organization. So the IL2 is more of a commercial practice. So probably 75, 80% of the people that get listed are going to be in the IL2 level. The IL3 level is more of a restricted level, so it's a higher, more confidential area of information that's being handled. And the I4 is much higher, and then you even get into fives and sixes where you have secret and top secret information. So as you go up the tiers, obviously there is more and more rigor required in the audits, and this is where the STAR certification, or ISO 27001, comes into play, because whoever audits you has to understand that what rigor is going to be involved based on the type of information that the cloud service provider handles. This is just a snapshot of the business impact levels and how they describe them in the GCloud. Once you've passed those levels, once you've passed that assessment, you're listed in the GCloud store. Any organization that's looking for cloud services can go to this cloud store and look for organizations listed. So the CSA registry, STAR registry, is going to be listing STAR certified organizations. So this is going to be a very similar type store where organizations can go to as obviously as the listing grows, where organizations could go to procure cloud services. Just a good screening process that's out there. Interestingly enough, organizations that want to be in the GCloud, it is a mandate, okay, that to be in the GCloud, you have to possess an accredited UCAS ISO 27001 certificate, okay? That is the bottom line requirements. If you don't have at least that, you can't even apply for GCloud, okay? More importantly is that the GCloud requires that your scope is in line with the services that you're providing as a cloud service. So STAR certification, if you remember, I talked about that the scope has to be fit for purpose and SLA driven. This was designed before we really knew the GCloud requirements, so you can see how visionary our working group has been in terms of defining what we know and the homework that went into understanding what the international world is looking for in terms of transparency in the cloud. But I don't want you to just take my word for it, because we put it out there for experts to look at. Okay, and so Mark Dunn, who is the CEO of SAS Assurance, now they are based in the UK, probably one of the more prominent GCloud experts in the world. They are a SaaS provider, but more importantly, Mark has years of experience as a cloud architect, and he specializes in applying information security frameworks to cloud technology and software as a service platforms. So he actually has a service where he can guide organizations through the GCloud process. So there's been a lot of research and everything going into this. Basically, he looked at the CSA STAR, and we asked him, wanted to know how close is this to meeting the GCloud processes. And he said early on, he made the claim that the answer to provide transparency in the public sector certification was the CSA STAR. And using the principles of the GCloud Accreditation plus the Cloud Security Alliance STAR certification provides a very high level of assurance. And he provided the following slides to show how they made the connection between GCloud and the STAR. So he wanted to look at the ways we optimize the best level of assurance by using both certification schemes in tandem. So for GCloud accreditation, the PN government accreditor must review and approve the risk management and accreditation documentation.
So let's move on to slide 26. And so for GCloud accreditation, the PN accreditor, as I mentioned, has to approve your risk assessment process. So to bolster this process, you ensure the controls from the cloud control matrix are reviewed while dealing with all assets related to cloud technology. So you can see how the cloud control matrix answers to the requirements from the GCloud from that risk register perspective. More importantly, as I mentioned, the GCloud accreditation requires ISO 27001 certification. It has to be carried out by UCAS accredited body, so certification bodies like BSI or other certification bodies like us. So that's one of the first requirements. And of course, CSA STAR certification also requires, that organizations are ISO 27001 certified as well. The ISO 27001, we talked about the suitability of scope. So GCloud requires, on top of being the certification certified to 27001, that you must look at your scope to make sure that is suitably put in place, and it's based on good commercial standards centered around ISO 27001. So I'm on slide 30 now. So on top of so STAR certification evaluates, again, the efficiency of your organization's ISMS and ensures that that scope and processes are, again, fit for purpose. So direct correlation, right? The public sector requires information assurance as part of the security accreditation. So you look at personal information, subcontractors, technical solutions, and so on. As you can see, the STAR certification, each domain is scored on a specific maturity and measured against the 5 management principles defining the management capability score. And then these levels are designated as no score, bronze, silver, are gold awards. So this, again, meets the intent of those requirements under the GCloud. As you can see on slide 33, this is an example of when combined with the STAR certification and the government accreditation frameworks can provide an exceptional level of assurance for solutions operating in the public sector. And definitely STAR certification becomes a differentiator. So again, very detailed analysis done by the experts to show the value of STAR certification. And I'm going to move on quickly here to start talk about some other experts and endorsements that have come to CSA STAR, because the cloud controls are really about the evidence that's provided, okay, the effectivity of the organization, the competency level, and of course that brings more accountability and transparency to the organization. So how do we approve assessors? As I said, the cloud assessors must first of all work for a STAR for a certifying body. They must demonstrate their knowledge in the cloud sector, either through industry experience, by assessing organizations of the cloud, and or through completing CCSK certification or any certification that's equivalent to CCSK. They must show evidence that they work for and audit. They are certified lead auditors for a accredited certifying body. The competence, they must show their competence by going through the approved sanctioned course of CSA. And this course is sanctioned, currently was developed and carried out by BSI, and is currently the only sanctioned course in lieu of consistency to ensure that the CSA requirements of training are carried out and delivered properly. So as we go to the next slide, you can see that it's a triangle of the cloud knowledge, the knowledge of ISO 27001, and the auditing experience that's regulated by the accreditation bodies, plus the knowledge of the cloud control matrix and how to audit that, then brings those auditors to certified status to carry out STAR certification. So very comprehensive. You can have a high degree of knowledge that those auditors handling those things in place. But again, we continue to raise the credibility and rising reputation of STAR. As I said, it's growing exponentially. Countries and entities that refer to the OCF or STAR certification is either a requirement in cloud service procurement or a suitable certification for cloud services are listed here, and this list continues to grow. In the next slide is a very critical endorsement, actually, as we sent the STAR information to a gentleman who is probably the more prominent attorneys in the nation. His name is Jeffrey Ritter. He is expert in cyber law, research standards, technology, international trade. He's written several books and recognized as a pioneer in shaping legal rules in cyberspace. He's a lecturer at Whiting School of Engineering at Johns Hopkins University. He's an adjunct professor of law for Georgetown University Law Center and was just recently appointed to the academic staff at Oxford University. He has over 20 years experience in this space, 25 years in the private sector, and does an incredible amount of research and teaching in network information security and governance. He looked at the CSA STAR certification in detail, and you can see Jeffrey basically said that the CSA STAR certification and registry represent an important innovation toward improving the transparency and certainty with which the global community can embrace cloud-based services with greater confidence, and that the unified third-party certification greatly improves the efficiency. And of course, more importantly, when you get into concerning yourself with standard of care and due diligence, he notes that in the absence of CSA STAR certification, negotiating contracts for cloud services is much harder to do, and that no one benefits from those the extensive contract negotiations. The lawyers are getting involved. So STAR certification really streamlines the dialogue, provides a transparent shared foundation for moving forward. So this is a very significant endorsement for STAR certification. Just quickly, the next slide here, I want to talk about the Cloud Trust Protocol, because I just want to touch on the the fact that it's going to be, this is the third level of the OCF, and this is continuous monitoring. So this is real-time monitoring of security properties, as well as continuous transparency of services moving forward. So on the next slide here, it's just a description of the Cloud Trust Protocol. We realize that consumers don't have a simple, cost-effective way to evaluate and compare the providers on a real-time basis. So as we move into this second tier, third tier, as I mentioned, you had the self-assessment, and then of course the certification, which brings us more rigor, more transparency, more international acceptance. Now, the third step here is the real-time monitoring. So the Cloud Trust Protocol is really that industry initiative to enable real-time monitoring of cloud service providers and certain security properties, as well as continuous transparency of their services. This is part of the GRC stack and, of course, the Open Certification Framework, which is really continuous monitoring component, really a complement to the assessment. So this isn't going to be something instead of. This would be part of that process of STAR certification, will be that continuous monitoring. So on the next slide, I just give you a quick overview of the of the ultimate process that we're looking for, and that's to have a API, an interface that will allow organizations to look at certain aspects within the cloud service provider. And we don't know what those, we haven't defined exactly what those key process input variables are, but very early stages, but you can look for that through 2015. And by the way, anyone on the call that feels they want to get involved in the Cloud Trust Protocol working group, let me know. I would be happy to add you to that list. Always looking for great ideas, but ultimately this will be, assessed and reviewed by not only users but also service providers as well. So in the next slide, I just want to quickly give you a standards update of the new and evolving standards that are out there. And these are really either been published or in the so in the next slide here, you start to look at the list of the published standards, starting with ISO 27000 down to 27011. So you can see all these have either been updated or published for different areas of security that are really, in many cases, other than the ISO 27001, they're really guidance documents that allow you to assess more aspects of your organization and connecting with the ISO 27001 process. As you can see, there's an ISO 27001 17, which is still under development. That again, addresses certain aspects of cloud security or cloud computing, and then there's even a privacy standard for cloud computing that's under development. So continues to evolve. As you can see, STAR certification and the OCF team continues to evolve with these standards as well. On this next page, again, rounding up the list of things that are being developed and have been published to address pretty much anything that is within the security space. So you can look for those. You can go on the ISO.org website, and you can query these. You can see where they're at in their development process, and if they've been published, you can see, how they're being when they were published, and they're available for purchase there also. Okay, so on my final slide here, our key to transforming anything lies in our ability to reframe it. So as I mentioned, I was a keynote speaker in the Amsterdam last year during the launch, Edinburgh, during the launch of the STAR certification. And I mentioned that we're really cultivating new ground as modern-day pioneers. We, like many before us, gone out into modern-day wilderness with a sense of exhilaration, the achievements to come with new practical energy and improved technical foresight, which is transforming the face of computing and the definition of security. It was once said that the only man I know who behaves sensibly is my tailor. He makes my measurements anew each time he sees me. The rest go on with their old measurements and expect me to fit in them. So again, we have to take this tailored approach to information security and the cloud. We believe that the OCF group and associated groups work together very diligently to do the proper research and make sure that we're meeting international requirements and that we're meeting your needs as a user and a cloud service provider by integrating systems, making quality, not quantity, and this holistic purpose of implementing once, comply many, not really, making more work, but actually increasing your value and decreasing what it takes to get there. So with that, I guess I can't see any questions, but you can tell me if there are any out there. Thanks everyone for attending, and John, I'll turn it back over to you.
Hey, thanks, John. I want to just thank everybody else for jumping on the call today. A special thanks to our wonderful speaker, John DeMaria with BSI. We truly appreciate and admire your continued impact on our industry. Appreciate everybody for taking the time out of their day too to join us for yet another CSA event. Please take advantage of John's email on the screen there. I'm also going to show again an email where you can address all CSA CloudBytes questions to both the speaker John DeMaria and myself. My name is John Yo with Cloud Security Alliance. Thanks for coming, everybody. Sorry about the technical difficulties, but we sure want to make sure you have a great rest of your day and an exciting week at RSA for those who will be there. Happy Thursday, everybody, and we hope to hear from you soon. Thanks.